Well, all Bulls fans know and have seen the rise of Coby White this season. I'm going to talk about today why Coby White should be the NBA's most improved player, but why he's still likely to be overlooked for that award. We're going to talk about that. Plus, we're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls being shut out of All-Star Weekend completely for the first time in 44 years, and a former Bull is on the finalist list for the Naismith Hall of Fame. We're going to talk about all that plus the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host, Terry Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into this content for today. And I want to talk about one Alec Jacoby White, a player who was having a breakout season for the Chicago Bulls, who is really, in a lot of ways, been one of the lone bright spots for the Chicago Bulls. I would assume was come up with him as well. And while we talked a lot about Coby White over the last couple of months, and, even kind of earlier in his run, kind of more around mid-December, we were talking about Coby White's chances to win Most Improved Player of the Year. Now, as the voting is and the odds as far as betting sites have changed, Coby White has gone from being having the fourth best odds to win the Most Improved Player to the second, still behind Tyrese Maxey. I think that Coby White is going to be overlooked for the Most Improved Player of the Year award, but that's okay. Coby White still, to me, is adamantly should be the Most Improved Player of the Year this NBA season, and because of what the nature and the name of the award is. Now, we know the Most Improved Player of the Year doesn't always go to necessarily Most Improved Player per se. Look at Ja Morant, the year that he won it, even though he was the second overall pick. People kind of had those expectations. But Coby White has gone and has, by the definition of most improved, has done it in every facet of the game. And to kind of lay this out, we got to talk about Coby White's career here with the Chicago Bulls for over the course of time, right? When you look at it, Coby White initially coming in his rookie season, only starting one game. I think that one game was the last game of that season, if I'm not mistaken. Started one game for that Chicago Bulls team, and under Jim Boylen was mainly used as basically that scoring, that punch off the bench, right? Playing 25 minutes per game. He did average 13 points per game over that on decent enough shooting of 39% and 35% from three-point range. And then you look at his second season. Second season, he started 54 games in the second season of his NBA career, and that was fine. That was the first year under Billy Donovan, who Billy kind of used him more as he started him way more. He started 54 out of 69 games played, but even his role was kind of inconsistent. Now, he did average 15 points per game over that time. Got to give love up to Coby White in that. Then, the first season after Lonzo Ball and the major changes with this team, that's when Coby's role and kind of his scoring opportunities and things like that saw a step down, right? 12.7 points per game in that. He still started 17 games for the Bulls and still played 27 minutes per game. Now, his shot output did increase as far as percentage-wise. He took 3 less shots than his sophomore year, but still hit that at a 43% clip and 38% from three-point range, both increases of about 2.5 to 3% from the prior years in those areas. And he still was averaging 3 rebounds, 3 assists per game as well, and right over a half a steal per game. Still having really good impact for the Chicago Bulls off the bench. And then you had last season where Coby White, the minutes became more inconsistent. He played the least amount of minutes average-wise since his rookie season. That was actually the least amount of minutes he played in his NBA career at 23 minutes per game. He did play 74 games, started 2 games for that. But that's when Coby White started understanding how he needed to impact the game because the shots weren't always going to be there for him. Only averaging 9.7 points per game. Now, he did that on much less. The first time in his NBA career, he averaged less than double digits shot attempts per game, but still really efficient. 44% from the field there and 37% from three-point range. And most of his shots, look at him only taking about 8 shots per game. 4.5 of those were three-pointers. So his role as far as offensively was determined, right? He was one of those players that was going to get mainly threes. The Bulls needed a lot of three-point shooting. He mainly did that. But when you look at the things he did, 3 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, on the least amount of minutes per game, and defensively had the first season of him being a positive defender when he was on the court. His on-off court numbers were looking pretty solid at that point in time, but 9.7 points per game, which leads us to this season. And this season, statistically, which we're going to talk a little bit more than just the statistics, but he's increased his output by over 10 points per game, going from 9.7 points per game to 19.6 points per game. And he's doing that at having the most efficient season of his career. 46% from the field overall, 39% from three-point range, both career best numbers for him. He's also averaging the most shots that he has at 15 per game. He's doing that with 4.7 rebounds, 5.3 assists in that time, right under a steal per game. Coby White has increased in every single measurable statistic as far as the output that the stats will tell you. And even with the advanced analytics will tell you the same thing. Coby White is having almost a 60% true shooting percentage, which put him at almost elite category. It just is the fact. His usage rate's also the highest, while his efficiency is almost the highest. Coby White, by the nature of the name, most improved, has improved the most. And then outside of the measurable statistics, we're seeing Coby White grow as a leader. Not only being more vocal on the offensive side of the ball, being that point guard and talking to guys about where they want to be, but even though he's not the best one-on-one defender, he still has stepped up defensively as well as his communication on the defensive side. We've seen him grow and step into big moments as well for the Chicago Bulls. Now, he hasn't got a whole lot of those fourth quarter shots that we like to see, especially in crunch time. Billy Donovan's starting to trust him a little bit more. And this is not to knock the seasons that Tyrese Maxey is having, for example. But Tyrese Maxey was already a player that was prioritized in that Philadelphia 76ers team. And of course, that role grew even more with the departure of James Harden. That makes sense. Alfred Sengun, who as well is another player who has stepped up into a different role, being relied on way more heavily with Ime Udoka coming into that team as a coach and recognizing what Sengun brings to that team. But to me, and this may be my own bias as a Bulls fan, and I can admit that, Coby White has done the most improving in not only role, output, but also his leadership. And there needs to be something said about the way that growing as a leader is important to being the most improved player. I would go on to say that the growth that Coby White has had has impacted the Chicago Bulls' overall outcome more than even with Tyrese Maxey rising his point per game output by 5 points per game. And he's risen in other areas and assists, and he's become a little bit more efficient as well. But it is up the ceiling more for the Chicago Bulls than what Tyrese Maxey has done. Same thing with Sengun. I think when you look at Sengun, definitely the coach coming in there and having just a better coach overall has definitely helped that. But to me, and again, I'm a Bulls fan, and that you can color that for how you will. But to me, Coby White not only has been the most improved, he's also been one of the most impactful for what his team needed him to be with the start of the season with DeMar, Vooch, and Zach all shooting career lows. With the fact that Zach then being in and out of the lineup, Coby White stepping in to give that impact right away, basically in the month of December, and he's taken off and run with it since then. And to me, if Coby White is truly going to be in this conversation for most improved player, while Maxey has the go, right? He's on a team that everybody watches. They have an MVP candidate. They've gone on playoff runs before. All eyes are going to be on what Maxey does. And when you see it and you know they're outside of like Ben Simmons and a couple of other people who have, Bill Simmons, not Ben Simmons, Bill Simmons, outside of him, there really haven't been a lot of people on the national stage to really talk about the season that Coby White's having. Coby White can't have a fall off after the All-Star break. If anything, if he truly wants a chance at this award, he's going to have to maybe even step it up a little bit more after the All-Star break with the Bulls winning. When this conversation first started about Coby White's chances to win most improved player, I said that it will come down, in my opinion, to the fact that the team's success just isn't there. But we saw a player in Lauri Markkanen win it last season when that team wasn't necessarily the best either, didn't have like this amazing run. Can Coby White do it? We'll see. But I think overall, even if he doesn't win most improved player, it's just going to be another thing that Coby White uses to continually motivate himself, because that's what Coby White has been over his NBA career. Even when his role has kind of been inconsistent for the Chicago Bulls, he's always been somebody who's kept a positive outlook and has owned his own failures, mistakes, and growth. And that is why I think regardless if Coby White is overlooked for most improved player, probably still going to be one of the best things for Coby just by the nature of who the player he is. But let me know what you guys think on all that down below. With that said, the Bulls, this is the first time in 44 years since 1980 that the Chicago Bulls have not had one player featured in the All-Star weekend at all. That means rising stars, skill competition, three-point contest, the All-Star game itself. The Bulls have not a single representative in that game, in the All-Star weekend as a whole. And this needs to be something that I think the Bulls also should use for motivation, right? And it could be well, right? The reason why I think this may be best for Bulls, DeMar DeRozan and Coby White and a lot of our players are averaging so many minutes. The Bulls need this break, both physically, and not to say that All-Star Weekend is too physically taxing on players because they do it every single year, but it in my opinion, with the Bulls, one of the biggest things that they need is rest, to get those fresh legs, to kind of regroup, have some time to kind of focus on how they want to change and attack things coming out of the All-Star break. It sucks not to see any Bulls represented, right? Even though, the dunk contest was whack yet again. Shout out to Mac McClung for winning it. He should have won it again. Shout out to him for being a back-to-back slam dunk champion, joining some of the greats in that. The three-point competition was cool. The skills competition was much more exciting than what I was giving it credit to coming in. But the Bulls not having any representation is kind of just, it is what it is, right? And I know I say that a lot, but it kind of comes down to that for me. It just is what it is. This season for the Bulls has been an up and down season. And I would much rather my team get the opportunity. I know a lot of those guys are going to be at All-Star Weekend, though, but to use that for motivation and to focus and to put another, notch in you to go ahead and get ready to attack this All-Star break. Because to tell you what, the 27 games the Bulls have left after the All-Star break are going to be 27 important games if this team really wants, to make a postseason appearance. And let's see if they can do that. Now, before we get into the mailbag, I just want to acknowledge one thing. Doug Collins is a finalist for the 2024 Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, and he's in there as both the coach and a broadcaster, which he did both really well. This is a guy who's coached for the Chicago Bulls before he's come back to the Chicago Bulls. Now he's still currently listed as a consultant for the Chicago Bulls. He's the executive. He's in the executive branch. He's the senior advisor of basketball operations. So he's an advisor to Arturas Karnisovas. But Doug Collins is somebody who coached Michael Jordan before Phil Jackson ended up taking off, but he did turn that Chicago Bulls team into an Eastern Conference finalist. He then ended up going to the Detroit Pistons from 1995 to 1998. And then he coached with the Washington Wizards as well, coached with the Philadelphia 76ers. And, Doug Collins is a guy who, he almost got brought back for the Chicago Bulls, but Jerry Reinsdorf decided he didn't want to do it because of his relationship with Doug Collins. But Doug Collins is somebody who I do hope does get into the Hall of Fame, because when you look at his contributions, the fact that he's been able to do it, the players that he's had up under him, Doug Collins is somebody that I think deserves to get into it. And just shout out to Doug Collins for making it that far, a former Chicago Bull. But all right, it's Sunday, so that means it's mailbag day. Let's go ahead and get into these voicemails. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, this is Reginald from Columbus, Georgia. When it comes to Billy being moved to the front office, like you and Pat said, I don't mind that. To me, getting a new person in. I also agree with Pat to a degree that the assistant coach Fleming, while he's not like some great coach, but just someone who's faster with the adjustments. And if Billy Donovan is not in the picture, odds are that Levine probably wants to stay. And with that Levine staying and DeMar probably leaving either via sign and trade or just free agency, because I honestly don't think the Bulls have the money to pay him unless they're planning on, using the career-ending exception on Lonzo and then using that to pay him. But I doubt he'll get more than 14, 15 million a year. Same with Pat Williams. But my thing is, who would be a good replacement for Billy Donovan if he leaves? Whether that's Fleming or some other assistant, who could get the respect of the players there and know that the best way to win is playing good team fundamental basketball. But
Billy going to the front office, and that's something like I said, me and Pat talked about it. I had it on yesterday's episode, and there's been varying degrees of fans really kind of wanting to see that or not, or things like that. But when it comes down to Chris Fleming, I get it that he was faster to make adjustments, but here's my thing: when you're the head coach, it's a lot more than just making adjustments fast, right? And so, like I said, I'm not to say that Chris Fleming shouldn't interview, but I just don't think if Billy Donovan were to move on into the front office and any other role, whatever it is, I just don't think that Chris Fleming should just get the de facto head coaching position. The Bulls should still do a search. They should still do a look at other young candidates out there, and Chris Fleming should be one of those guys who's given an opportunity to interview for it and to see what he can bring. I'm not saying that he shouldn't get an opportunity, but I just don't want to narrow down our search just into Chris Fleming. I just don't want it to do that just because he showed some flashes as taking over as the interim head coach while Billy Donovan was out with COVID, right? I think it was COVID. I think that's what it was. I don't want to see him just get it down just for that. Now, as far as Billy Donovan moving into the front office, could that mean that Zach LaVine stays? I think that now that the trade request is out there and now the kind of the situation, here's the thing. Have there been players that have requested a trade that ended up staying with their team? Yes, absolutely. That's happened over the course of the history of the NBA. I don't think it's common, though. And then when you look at kind of, at times where you felt like Zach LaVine kind of quit on the team, things like that, is that something you want to keep going? There's a lot of questions to do in that. Could that be a result of Billy Donovan moving to the front office? Maybe. He still would be theoretically with the franchise then. So maybe that, I don't know if that really makes that much more better now. How much do players really interact with the GM is one thing as well. So a lot of questions in that, but great perspective. I hadn't thought about it from that perspective at all, Reginald. And I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Could Billy Donovan potentially, and this is all potential, this is just a scenario I cooked up, but if he were to move to the front office and a different head coach could come on, do you think that could change Zach LaVine's desire to want to be traded, especially since it seems like he's going to have to come back and play for the Bulls anyway to kind of up that trade value and that market for him? Let me know what you guys think on that down below. All right, let's go into the next voicemail. This one's from Shay.
Yo, what's up, Hayes? Look, man, I hear Danilo Gallinari is either going to the Minnesota Timberwolves or the Milwaukee Bucks. So the way I see it, Marcus Morris is the only logical choice for us. Now, look, I know people going to say Evan Fournier. I know people going to say Joe Harris and all that shit, but, let's think about it, bro. We already got enough guards. Yeah, Fournier can play a little bit of small forward, but, let's face it, he's really a guard, and we don't need no more guard depth. We need most likely power forward depth for the most part. Because I feel like we already got enough wing and guard depth, We need somebody at that power forward spot, just in case if Patrick Williams doesn't come back. And we definitely need somebody for some insurance. I know you don't want Robert Lopez, so I think that Marcus Morris he may not be the best option, but I think he will be the most safest option, in my opinion, due to the fact that you don't see him get injured a lot. And then, too, he does offer something else besides three-point shooting, which is defense and toughness. Another thing, I know this is going a little bit off topic, but what the hell is going on with the NBA? Buying P.J. Tucker for requesting a trade from the Clippers. And another thing, what caused Isaiah Stewart to hit Drew Eubanks in the face? Unprovoked. Damn, I know the Detroit Pistons been losing, but shit, they ain't nearly enough reason to be punching somebody in the face, especially when they ain't even in your conference, especially when they ain't even LeBron James. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
All right, Marcus Morris as a buyout candidate. Here's what I'm going to say. I get what you're getting at with that, especially if the Bulls are looking at size. Marcus Morris just, to me, we're trying to add three-point shooting. And keep in mind, Joe Harris has played a lot of small forward here, especially over the last couple of years when he has played. It's almost been more small forward than it has been shooting guard. I know we do have a lot of guards on this team, but you also have to look at it. Javon Carter is a guy who's getting minutes, who those minutes can instantly go to Joe Harris, right? So, and also, now, you did say if Patrick Williams doesn't come back, which that paints a whole different scenario and picture, because at that point, yes, absolutely, I agree with you. But if Patrick Williams does come back, you have Patrick Williams, you have Torrey Craig. I don't see a Marcus Morris passing either of those guys up in any type of minutes on the depth chart. And the one place that there could be more minutes, especially with Zach LaVine being out more season, is out on the wing. So, Marcus Morris is cool. I'm not trying to paint him as anybody who's bad. He's a career 37% three-point shooter, so that's solid enough, taking 4.5 three-pointers per game. So, we'll see. We'll see if the Bulls do pivot to him. Great voicemail from Shay there. All right, let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Vaughn.
What's up, Hayes? This is Vaughn. I was just wondering, so if the Bulls front office keeps everything relatively the same, and it comes down to basically a choice between DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine on who should be traded, because we know this Bulls team wants to stay below the luxury tax. I don't necessarily see them being able to move off Alonzo Ball's contract unless he's medically, retired. And then Vucevic obviously seems like a tough one to move off of. So if it comes down to a DeMar DeRozan versus Zach LaVine thing, assuming they want to stand at that luxury tax, do you think they should just let DeMar walk and then keep Zach if he has no trade value, move to that small forward position and let Caruso or Isles start too, and then just try to have Zach build his trade value? Or what do you think about that? And then second question I would have about the draft. So I've been looking at Donovan Clingan and Khalil Ware. Which one of those two players do you feel like would be a better fit for the Bulls, and how important do you think it is for them to draft a center for the future? But let me know what you think. All right, peace.
If it comes down to Zach or DeMar to avoid the luxury tax, I think that the Bulls are kind of pigeonholed in it to being Zach because DeMar's a free agent. I just don't know if it comes down to this free agency and before the start of the season, the Bulls absolutely need to either let DeMar walk or trade Zach LaVine. I think letting DeMar walk is probably the more likely scenario, just because you're not going to want to trade Zach LaVine in a deal that's going to completely and utterly be an undersell. You want to give Zach LaVine some of that chance and opportunity to up his trade value. Also, even if DeMar does walk in free agency, like I said, there's the opportunity for a signing trade to where you're getting something back rather than nothing. So if it comes down to the avoidance of the luxury tax, I think it's going to come down to DeMar DeRozan just not being re-signed. Not to say that I think that's the best choice, but at the end of the day, I think it's kind of the same, right? So that's what it comes down to. Now, as far as college centers, now I've talked about this guy before. I think the best prospect for the Chicago Bulls in the center market is Kyle Filipowski. I think that's the guy who needs to be signed, averaging 17 points per game, 8 rebounds, 2.7 assists, almost 2 blocks per game, as well as Kyle Filipowski is averaging, and I think I'm saying that right, 1.7 blocks per game. He's also averaging a steal per game. And to keep in mind, the Bulls don't have a second-round pick. The other two guys that you mentioned in Donovan Clingan and also Khalil Ware, they're both projected to go in the second round. Now, that can change, right? And where the Bulls pick Kyle Filipowski is definitely slated to be right around where you suggested. And even depending on if the Bulls make it out the play-in or not, that could even be a reach to take him where the Bulls pick may be, that they're reaching and kind of getting him a little bit early. So to go to second round when we don't have any second-round picks, we only have a first-round pick. Not to say that Khalil Ware and Donovan Clingan aren't really good prospects as well. Sophomore, all three of the guys are sophomores, so still really young as well. I just think that Kyle Filipowski offers the best prospect for him. Khalil Ware, he's really good too. He's more athletic for sure, I think, than the other guys. He kind of projects to be, if anybody's going to be a more modern type center, it's maybe him. He's averaging 1.5 blocks per game as well. But the thing with him is he's averaged 1.5 blocks for both his years. Kyle Filipowski averaged less than 1 block per game his freshman year. Now in the sophomore year, he's averaging 1.7 blocks per game. So Khalil Ware kind of projects to be a little bit better. He's also shooting the ball at 44% from three-point range. He's only taking 1.5 per game, so kind of more modern there. Filipowski, for example, is averaging 3.5 three-pointers per game, and he's hitting that not as good, but at a 34% clip. So if you're kind of looking for a more modern center, Filipowski kind of does that, but more athletic, high level. Khalil Ware also. Donovan Clingan is a guy that I like too, especially like he's kind of just a center that just rebounds, blocks shots. He's really good at that, averaging 2.2 blocks per game right now in his sophomore year. But I like all of these guys, and I just think that where the Bulls are picking, they may not look at the other two because they'd be so big of reaches, and I don't see the Bulls trading into the second round either, but it could. I mean, maybe they do trade with the team and trade back and get them, which is a possibility as well, but those are probably the best center prospects for the Chicago Bulls in this draft, unless things go really left to where they can get towards the top of the draft. And then the best center in this is, of course, Sarr, but that would come down to the Bulls. He's going top 3, probably top 5 at the bare minimum, and I just don't see the Bulls drafting that high. So you kind of got the best prospects for the Bulls there. Great point there, and I'll definitely cover them as we go towards the offseason as well. All right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from T'Challa.
Yeah, this your boy T'Challa. I just wanted to add from today's show, I was very sarcastic with the New York Knicks' future. They don't have a future. Their future is just to get their ass whooped. And when I was talking about our future, I'm talking about the 3 core members that we have, So as far as that unit, no, we don't have a future as far as going to the playoffs, being sassy, the play-in, being sassy, and whatnot, like them other teams that's on the back end of the 1 through 6. Just being sassy, they're gonna get their ass put out is what I was going. Is where I was going with that. The whole thing is our only future is Io the Sumo, Coby White, and the rest of the young guys. All we can do is add to that. As far as our real future, it lies in them. And all we can do is build around them next year. You know what I'm saying? Anything pertaining to the New York Cowboys is all sarcasm, and because I know the only future that they have is to go to the playoffs, get their ass whooped. The thing is, with our front office, those were great moves at the time. As I'm gonna keep reiterating, the thing is, they just didn't pan out. They ended up being duds because if you look at those the player numbers and those player performances, as what DeMartin did in his career, as what Buchanan did in his career, anybody would be like, damn, yeah. That was great moves, and the whole city was going up. We always like, yeah, those were great moves, but it didn't pan out with them being together. So the thing is, all we can do is now work up something and eventually get those guys out. So we were fucked even making trades and stuff like that, and then we had to play a little hardball with different players such as that because we can't take pennies for $1. You know what I'm saying? We can't take a couple of dollars for $100 bill. You know what I'm saying? So the thing is, we had to play that hardball. But by next year, and if we still end up in this situation in the off season, we're gonna have to just get them. You know what I'm saying? Get $50 for that 100. You know what I'm saying? At least. You know what I'm saying? So that's just the situation how it ended up. You know, we couldn't predict all them players wasn't gonna work together, and then Lonzo was gonna get hurt. From the numbers and those players' individual career, you would say, oh, yeah, that shit, it was going to work, and it did work. We was the number one team. That's what people, like, keep going around. We was the number one team at some point throughout that season until the injuries started to compound. So the whole thing is it ended up plummeting and exploding with.
All right, T'Challa, here's the thing, bro. And, again, I don't mean this snidely at all. You're a big supporter here, and I appreciate you. You know, we've had conversations in the comment section. But the thing that you're missing in this to me is just because they were great moves on paper at the time, front offices are judged by the results of the moves that they make, and that's where the team ends up. If they didn't work out, they weren't great moves. You can't give credit for something that was on paper. That's like saying somebody had the potential to being a great player, but they never hit it. Guess what? Then they weren't a great player. You don't get credit for something looking good on paper. You do when it initially happens, but every front office is judged by the results of the deals that they've had. And you said this. You hit the nail on the head when you said fucked from the beginning. We were fucked from the beginning because they weren't good moves and they didn't end up that way. Yes, you brought in 3 players that didn't really fit together, that had really good individual seasons last year, but you don't get credit for that because it's about you're trying to build a team. The whole purpose of being a GM isn't to bring over players that can have individually great seasons and you not get nowhere. It's to increase the ceiling of the team. And even with you saying the Knicks, guess what, though? The Knicks outlook, you can say that they're going to be eliminated and they're the Cowboys. You can say all of that. But I guarantee you right now, Bulls fans would much rather be in a place where they're 4th in the Eastern Conference, have the chance to go to the second round, and then can say we can steady build off that. They would much rather be in that place that you're building off something and you have something worth fighting for. Your own and my own, because I don't like the Knicks either, and I do think the Knicks are going to go out ugly in the playoffs. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden they're worse than the Chicago Bulls. Guess what? They are in a better place than where the Chicago Bulls are, period. And it seems like, and I got to be honest with you on this one, I'm not trying to come at you, but it seems like you have your predetermined thought of, the front office isn't that bad, or the front office has done everything they can. We need to, and then you let the facts kind of fill that narrative. The front office hasn't been good. It just hasn't. By the results that are on the basketball court, they have not been good in the decisions that they've made. The initial decision to bring this team together, when Lonzo Ball, yeah, we were number one team in the East, but we were number one team in the East while beating the worst teams in the NBA. And even during that stretch, go back and look. When the Bulls were literally number one team in the East, and this was my first year doing this show, I was saying, hey, if the Bulls keep playing like they are right now, we're not going to stay number one team in the East because, yes, while we had that stat of being number one team in the East, there were glaring holes on that team that were potential signs to the team's downfall, even if Lonzo hadn't went down, right? The biggest thing about that first season with the Bulls when they were number one team in the East that I go to is to say that would have been a great platform for a team. If everybody would have stayed healthy, to then let's go out and fill the holes on this team, which is what the New York Knicks have done with their roster. So this thing of just focusing on the Knicks, at the end of the day, they're better than the Bulls. And at the end of the day, they have, whether they end up capitalizing on it or not, they are in a much better position to where you can see the future that they do have of trying to build one than where the Bulls are right now. That's what I think. I mean, I get it, T'Challa, but I think at some point you got to move off your undying love for this front office and be able to review it objectively. Where the Bulls are right now are results based off the years of decisions that this front office has made. And if we're going to come out of it, they're going to have to start making better decisions. Let me know what everybody thinks on that down below. Let's get into this next voicemail. This one's from Corn.
Hey, what's good, King? What's the word? It's Corn, man. Let's get into this first half of the season, man. Let's just get right into it. Because I've been watching shows and shit, you know what I'm saying? And I want to first say is this season has been overwhelming and underwhelming at the same time. The overwhelming is dealing with that trade, dealing with a team that's the first half of the season that it was just bad team. Now we're in the middle of the pack. I get it. We're not even in the middle of the pack. Let me not even say that. It's a real problem, team, when the underwhelming is that we ain't made no fucking moves. I'm not saying to make trades, but we need to make something happen. I believe a subscriber, a caller called in about the Knicks, calling them the Cowboys or whatever. And you said it right, regardless how you look at them, anything, they're making moves. And they're not just making moves to make moves, because if they were just making moves to make moves, they'll be where we at. They number 4 in the East. They're in the conversation as being a contender, not even being competitive like us, right? No, they're actual talk of them being a contender. You know what I mean? And another thing about Mark Eversley, get written. It's funny that you said to go to Orlando, to a place that you fleeces for by the Vooch trade, and now you just go up over there and hop on that bandwagon. And I see that's a little bit of a conspiracy for all my conspirators there. But us not making moves, us not doing what we need to do, it's going to keep us where we at. You already heard what I said about the month of March. I don't think we're going to make the play-in. I'm sorry. You said that, I hear you, we playing 500 basketball, but who the teams we was playing? And the teams that we was playing, they still took us to overtime. It was times that we thought we was going to lose the teams that we shouldn't lose to, and then we lose the teams that we shouldn't lose to. But this month, and like I said, I'm going to keep on saying it, this is the make or break month. This is the make or break month. If they don't get it right, I don't even see us in the play-in, King. And if then, what the fuck are we even here for? So always, man, appreciate you, Hayes, man, King. Blessings.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The season's been underwhelming and overwhelming at points and times, right? There are parts of this team that you absolutely look at and say, like Coby and Io, they have really played so extremely well and been such a key part. Alex Caruso doing exactly what he said he wanted to do and coming in and shooting the ball better and having his offense match his defense. But the team's success overall and where we sit as a team has been underwhelming, has been disappointing, and the injuries and things, of course, play a part into that. This has just been an interesting season for the Chicago Bulls, and a season where, I hope that the offseason brings some clarity, but I've been saying that for years now at this point in time. So I don't know, man. Like you said, I hope the Bulls don't miss the play-in. I don't see the Bulls missing the play-in personally. I do understand that March is going to be a tough month for the Bulls, and that's going to be kind of what tells the story of what we're going to look for. If the Bulls make it out of March, I said it, 27 games left, and a big chunk of that coming in the end of February and March, because there's not that many games in April. It's going to be important for the Bulls to show what they can really be, play together, and I think that's why getting healthy has to be such a priority for this team as well, so we can ride out in the rest of the season. But I right now don't see the Bulls missing the play-in, but I can understand for sure your points that you're making on why you are concerned about that. Let's see where it falls. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Bulls of Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.